Will you buy a sedan over an SUV? Well, Skoda definitely hopes so, that you'll keep aside that obsession with SUVs for just a bit and look at a proper three-box traditional sedan. This is the Slavia, Skoda's next vehicle on the MQB A0 Iron platform. And in this video, we are going to talk about dynamics, about handling, about the things that we love about sedans. But we have to start with the styling because this is a gorgeous looking car. Styling is of course personal, but there is no disputing the fact that the Slavia is one good looking car. Now you have this in-your-face toothy Skoda grille, which actually is nicely executed. You have the chrome framing for the grille, LED lights on the top end variant with these LED DRLs. The bumpers are different from the Kushaq. You get a lot of chrome out here. What you will notice is this Skoda badging, which is similar to what is there on the Kushaq, but the doors are different, and you will notice this prominent creasing in the doors, which gives it nice depth to the shoulder line, nice muscle. You will also notice the ground clearance. This is 179 mm, that's SUV kind of ground clearance, and the Slavia, it runs on 16-inch wheels, not 17-inch wheels, and that means you get a 5-finger gap in the wheel arch. That is big, and I think the stance should have been slightly better. 17s would have given it a lovely stance. The roofline, this is a coupe-like roofline, and we all thought, at least in the spy pictures, that this would have a notchback like the Octavia, but the boot, it opens normally, and the boot space, well, that is massive. 521 liters, and it opens up with the rear seats folded down to 1050 liters, so it's a massive boot. And on the rear, you get the Skoda lettering, and this whole treatment, it actually is nice. Crisp lines, very well executed, just a hint of chrome on the bottom of the bumper, no visible tailpipes, all of that is hidden. But really, isn't this a nice looking car? What do you think? Let us know in the comments below. If the interiors of the Slavia remind you of the Kushaq, well, you aren't wrong because the architecture is shared between the two. But there are a few detailed differences. Now, you will notice this bronze trim that is unique to the Slavia. The circular aircon vents on the edges, that is also unique to the Slavia. These vents in the center are the same, but they are much better finished than what we had experienced on the first lot of Kushaqs. Another thing, the roof lining, this is sorted out. The Kushaqs was a bit saggy, which we pointed out, but this is properly sorted out. It gets a regular sized sunroof, not a panoramic sunroof. The steering wheel, it's a 2-spoke steering wheel, what all the Skodas, the new Skodas have. Some of you have said that you don't like the styling of it, but I kind of like the styling. And on the top end variants of the Slavia, you get a digital cockpit. Analog dials are on the lower variants. The seats, they are cooled, and the position of the cool button, that is down here next to the gear lever, which is different from the Kushaq. The aircon controls, these touch controls, that's also shared with the Kushaq. You get a wireless charger, the 10-inch infotainment screen that has got wireless CarPlay, wireless Android Auto, a lot of connectivity features on it. It's a nice screen, and the wireless connectivity, it actually works very well. So overall, this is a familiar but a very nice cabin. You also get 6 airbags on the Slavia, you get hill hold control, you get ESP, so all the safety features are also baked into the Slavia. It's been a while since we tested a sedan, a traditional 3-box, and I'm so glad we are doing this. And I'm so glad Skoda is actually still keeping the faith with the traditional sedan. That market, of course, is not growing. In fact, it is shrinking. And the reason for that is obvious, that no manufacturer is really pushing anything in that segment. Everybody are doing SUVs, and because there is so much of buzz around SUVs, so everybody wants to buy SUVs. If more sedans were launched, I think there would be a little more interest in sedans. Of course, the market is moving towards SUVs, but it should not be at the entire 100% expense of sedans. So I'm glad Skoda are doing the Slavia. Now, to drive, sedans are traditionally better than SUVs for the simple reason that sedans are lower than SUVs, and that ensures that the engineers, they can focus more on the ride and handling than to ensure safety and make sure that an SUV doesn't do anything funny in case you get into a sticky situation. So to drive, the Slavia It feels very similar to the Kushaq. It is the same MQB A0 iron platform, and all the key dimensions are the same wheelbase, the hard points are all the same. In fact, there is a lot of commonality between the Kushaq and the Slavia, and that is to ensure price competitiveness, which is a good thing. There's nothing bad about that. In fact, in the interiors, this is more or less the same as what you get in the Kushaq, with a little difference in terms of the aircon vents, the positioning of some of the switches, but otherwise this is the same, which is a good thing because quality is good. The roof liner is actually much nicer than the Kushaq, so they've listened to us. This platform is great in terms of driving dynamics. Now the steering also feels like it can really complement the handling capabilities of this platform, of the chassis. So as you build up speed, it feels even more confident. It actually encourages you to drive it in an enthusiastic manner, and I love that about it. In terms of capability, oh, this is lovely. Compared to all its rivals, the ride on the Slavia is the best in this class. And the handling is also excellent. You can really chuck it hard and fast into corners, and she grips well. The front end, the bite is superb. There is a fair bit of body roll, and it is noticeable. This ride height is actually very high. The ground clearance, it is SUV type of ground clearance. Okay, it has been done to take into account our speed breakers and all of that, but it is a very high riding car, and running on only 16-inch wheels, not 17 inches, means that the gap in the wheel arch is actually very noticeable, but it still grips well. Surprisingly, you would think that the Kushaq on 17s would grip better than a Slavia on 16s, but you can carry more speed around corners in the Slavia than you can in the Kushaq, and that is obviously the tuning of the dampers. It's a lot to do with the center of gravity, with it being slightly lowered. Just makes it all come together so much more. And you can exploit the capabilities of this extremely capable chassis. Small differences, but those small differences, they work so well. They really light the fires of the enthusiast. What we're testing today is the 1-liter TSI. We will have a review on the 1.5 in a couple of days. The embargo for that lifts on the 4th of March. Right now, we can only tell you about the 1-liter TSI, so I'm sticking with this. Our test car has got the 6-speed manual gearbox. The 1-liter TSI makes the same power and torque figures as the Kushaq. 113.4 bhp, 178 Newton meters of torque. You can also get it with a 6-speed torque converter automatic. And it is a punchy engine. A punchy, eager, enthusiastic engine. It pulls well, feels strong. The only thing going against this engine is the perception that a 1.5 should make more power than a 1-liter, without accounting for the fact that this is turbocharged. The 1.5 is not turbocharged. I'm not talking about the Slavia's 1.5, but the rivals in its class, which have naturally aspirated 1.5-liter engines. This 1-liter, because of the turbocharger, it makes as much power as other 1.5 naturally aspirated engines. So in terms of the power, it is on par. In terms of the torque, it's actually better. In terms of the way it moves, it's so enthusiastic, so much fun to drive. It is a 3-cylinder engine, and that means it's not as refined as other 4-cylinder engines, but the 3-cylinder vibe, it actually gives it a nice character. It is, of course, audible. You can hear it, but it's not an irritating noise. It's a sporty kind of sound. This engine, it's excellent. It really is excellent. Now, there's no sport mode or anything like that on the Slavia. Nothing that increases the response from the engine or increases the weight of the steering. But as it is, this base setup is actually really good for daily driving as well as for attacking a few corners. So the balance is actually very good. They've got it on perfectly. The people who've built the Slavia, they are enthusiasts. The seat, it goes a little lower than it does in the Kushaq. Not that the Kushaq is also very high, but this is slightly lower, so you sit more within the car. It just engages you a little bit more. The steering, it adjusts for reach as well as rake, so you get a very good driving position. The visibility is good. It just generally feels a little nicer to drive than the Kushaq. And believe me, Kushaq, there was nothing wrong with the way it drove, but this is just a little nicer. Because of the just general makeup of a sedan, they've been able to soften the dampers a bit, so the ride quality is actually better than on the Kushaq. Also, when you go around corners, the inside rear wheel, it doesn't lift, it does in the Kushaq, and that just tells you that it is a little more planted, a little more capable around corners. This is the same torsion beam rear as the Kushaq, but just the tuning, because it is slightly lower, has helped it be a more planted and a more grippy car around corners. Going over speed breakers, it just goes so well over it, and that raised ride height just ensures nothing touches anywhere. I think the ride height is a bit too much, too SUV-like, but our roads are such. I think it's great what Skoda have done. This is what a car is supposed to be. Let's make sedans great again. Why do we buy SUVs? Well, first things first, it is the styling. Everybody wants something that is aggressive, in your face, gets other people out of your way. But today, every new SUV looks the same. So the novelty factor should have worn out a bit. The other reason we buy SUVs is to deal with our roads, and this is the genuine reason. Now, traditionally, an SUV has got more ground clearance than a traditional sedan. It also goes over speed breakers without touching its underbelly. But with the Skoda Slavia, this sedan actually has the same kind of ground clearance as an SUV. It does not touch on speed breakers. It can take bad roads with ease. The underpinnings, the chassis is as robust as an equivalent SUV. So the Slavia, it actually does everything that you want an SUV to do, but it is packaged in a much nicer three-box shape. To my eye, at least, this looks better than an SUV. But what do you think? Let us know in the comments below. And especially, I would love to hear whether you think that the Slavia has done enough to temper your enthusiasm for SUVs. Will this get you back into buying sedans? Let us know in the comments below. The final thing that we have to add over here is, how does the Slavia compare with its rivals? What are its rivals? Obviously the Honda City, the Maruti Suzuki Ciaz, and the Hyundai Verna. Now this 1-litre TSI, that competes directly, whereas the 1.5, it sits in a segment all of its own because it has got much more power than all these rivals. Of course, our final verdict will have to be when we get the pricing. Only then will we know it for sure and we can give you a final verdict. But in the way it drives, this actually sets a new benchmark in its class. So if you are a driving enthusiast, the Slavia should definitely be on your wish list.